Good afternoon. Welcome to another special edition of Make It Plain, streaming on all of your social media platforms, hopefully. And we're honored to have here with us today one of our leaders in the civil rights struggle. She is the president emeritus of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, and she has founded a new organization in the past few years, the Transformative Justice Coalition, still working very hard. She um, is probably the most comprehensive um, individual we know when it comes to our voting rights and the obstacles that we continue to face. All the little tricks and their intricacies, and it gets complicated. She perked my ears early in the year when she talked about when everybody was saying, "Oh, we can just mail in ballots." She pointed out how that's easier said than done, especially when it comes to African Americans. So here we are 3 days out. What's up? How are things looking? We want to hear all of this from her. Many of you know her, but for those of you not heard her before, get ready because she talks like a preacher. It's a natural thing to her. And when I was coming up in the ministers, when I was a young man, they said, "Son, you have a calling on your life." They could tell that. We've said that to her. But that's a whole nother conversation we'll get into. But you'll see. You will see. She tore up Reverend Jackson's town hall this morning, um, and carried on something terrible. She is attorney Barbara Arnwine. Barbara, God bless you. Welcome back to Make It Plain. It's been too long.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for having me, and thank you for all the remarkable work you do. I am always moved when I'm looking around and watching things happen, how much you are in the center of those things. Thank you for your leadership.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that, Barbara.
True.
So let's begin this way. I want to pick up on a conversation we had a couple months ago. Mail-in ballots. Um, that's that was never a sure and ideal thing to begin with, but now there's some more um, stuff to gum up the works in terms of the post office, in terms of some people. You said on the call, Reverend Jackson, this morning that some people have like the millions of ballots out there that some people still haven't even returned.
There are, as of Wednesday, there were 37 million absentee ballots that had not been returned. Now, clearly, over the last 4 days, hopefully, that number has gone down, but still, that's millions of people who have yet to turn in their absentee ballots. And that's a huge mistake, Mark, because at this point, if your absentee ballot is not in the mail, if it hasn't been mailed weeks ago, then don't even consider mailing it. I don't care what your state says about, oh, you got until X time after election day to mail it. No, don't pay that any attention. Talk about postmarked by, November 3rd. No, 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 no. We know that the trick of the opponents of democracy is that they want to block any and all ballots that aren't received by, and that means in the hands of election officials by November 3rd. Now, I have always had issues with absentee ballots because, as I said months ago, and people got angry at me, was that I thought it was a very strange strategy given that there are more ways to spoil absentee and vote by mail ballots than there are to trip people up at the polls. And that I've never, understood a strategy like this. I understand the COVID era. I understand that people want to be safe voting from home. But the only way you can make absentee balloting work well is by massive public education. And all I heard was people being told to vote by mail, but the public education of how to do it correctly was not there. And that is what's tripping up voters. In North Carolina, 5% of all black ballots are being rejected because people didn't get just a fundamental education about just using correct ink. If your state says black or blue or black and blue ink, that's all you can use. But people have been using pink ink, green ink, all kinds of purple ink, all
Right.
kinds of ink. And people don't understand that the machines can't read it. People have been, Mark, they've been writing emoji on their ballots saying, go Kamala, hate Trump,
You
love Trump, whatever. And they don't understand that the scanner sees that as an error, a marking error. So it kicks that ballot out. It will not count it. People didn't know these things. They didn't know that they could not put other people's ballots in their envelopes. The husband and wives wanted to vote together. So they put their ballots together. Neither one of them get counted. These are the problems that we're seeing out there. And then the exact match signature problem. We're having two problems with signatures. One is that people are forgetting to sign things. They don't sign the outside flap of the envelope. And why would they, Mark? That's one thing we teach people. Don't sign, give your signature away to the public. You don't just sign an envelope. You print your name on your address if you're mailing something. You don't sign it. So the fact that people are forgetting to sign it, that they're confused, that they're thinking, well, surely that means the elected officials will sign it when they receive it. They don't understand that they have to sign it. So that's been a huge problem. Another problem is that people, when they are signing their ballots, they want to use their fancy signature, Mark. But most people's signatures have what? They've changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So I registered, decades ago. And my signature does not look the same. I'm lucky because I'm in a state that doesn't have exact signature match. But think about all the people who are in the states like, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, whatever, that have had these kind of exact signature match problems. So I just want people to know that, heading into the future, we got to change a lot of these laws around absentee ballots, around vote by mail, to make it so that it doesn't entrap poor voters.
Yeah, that's very important. So while Trump was running around saying that mail-in ballots create an opportunity for fraud, what you were really pointing out is how mail-in ballots present an opportunity for those who've not used them before and who are uneducated to have them thrown out.
Exactly.
And that's more likely than the fraud.
That's correct. Because, I don't even know what he thinks the fraud is, because these states are so strict about absentee ballots. They just don't take any ballot and count it. They're going to check their registration. Some of them are checking signatures. They're going to check addresses. They're going to check if the ballot is correctly filled out. I don't understand where he thinks the fraud is going to come in. That people are going to make up imaginary names. How are they going to do that and get it counted? It has to match the voter registration list. So the whole notion of fraud is really bizarre. The only fraud possible is that somebody somehow claims somebody else's ballot, but that's not what we've been hearing problems with. Because that's too hard to do. If you want to cheat, if you really want to cheat massively, there's only two ways to cheat massively in an election. One is to hack the machines. That's your best option. The other option is that you're going to steal and discard lots of ballots or something like that. That's more common. But those don't happen as much anymore now that we have such good electronic tracking systems. So his whole notion of fraud has been a fraud. Let's face it, when he put up together, think about it. He put together that integrity commission. They couldn't come up with 5 cases of fraud, Mark. They couldn't even come up with anything. They wasted all our millions of dollars and ended up, what did he have to do? He had to disband it. He had to disband his own commission because it couldn't do approve any election fraud. Frankly, there's very rare that you hear of election fraud.
Yeah.
And guess what, Mark? All the cases I know of, almost every single case, except for probably a little few, are done by Republicans. So
Right.
I don't know
Right.
what he was talking about.
They're the ones really doing it. So
Crazy.
you said there are 37 million that haven't come back, right?
As of Wednesday. And
So,
my prayer is that more have come in since then. But still, that leaves millions out. It's horrific. This is a tragedy about to happen. You know, we predicted that if things weren't done right, that we had the potential of 25 million absentee ballots being discarded and wasted. We had predicted that. I'm sure, praying that that's not what happens. I'm praying that in these remaining 4 days that we can do the work of getting people to get their ballots in, and that we can avoid that problem. So I hope every preacher tomorrow from the pulpit is saying this. I hope everybody listening is writing their friends saying, do you still have that ballot? And if they're talking about, well, I'm going to vote it, I'm going to vote it at some point. No, you're running out of time, people. It's time to do it now because you don't want to get caught up in this legal battle that I know is going to happen. People are going to go to the Supreme Court at the end of November 3rd. They're going to say, block every ballot that hasn't been received. And that's going to be a legal challenge. 28 states in this country, out of 50 states, 28 says precisely that you must have the ballot received by the election officials by November, by close or whatever their polling close is on November 3rd. If it's not in their hand, they don't care when you postmark it. They don't even care if you deliver it an hour late. They will not count it. So 28 states, there are 22 other states that allow you to postmark it, but those are the states that are going to be in trouble because Kavanaugh has already said that he doesn't understand why the majority rule, as he calls it, the 28 state rule, doesn't dominate for all the states. Mm-hmm. So we know where he's coming from. Alito has indicated something very similar, and so has Thomas. So we know where 3 votes are on the Supreme Court. So why would we be irresponsible? Why would we allow ourselves, after going through all the trouble of requesting your ballot, filling out your ballot, why would you allow your ballot to be discarded? Go ahead, take it to the drop box. Take it to the polling site. They got to accept it, folks. Take it to the Board of Elections and turn it in now. Don't wait, not one more hour, not one more minute. Get it done now. Because if you're like some states that are closing at 7:00 p.m., their polls close on Tuesday. If that ballot's not in those 28 states that have those laws, if it's not in at 7:00, it's not going to be counted. So say to your head, I am going to do it now, but also say, I am going to tell everybody to do it now because we got to help each other in this time. People need transportation to the polling sites. People need help. In some states, other people can help take your ballot in. That's not true in every state. But in the states where you can call the 866 Our Vote hotline, 866 Our Vote, 866-687-8683 hotline, and ask what the law is in your state. If you're confined or scared to come outside and you want somebody else to take your ballot in, call them and they're going to tell you what's legal in your state, what's allowed. In Maryland, I can tell you that you can do it, that other people can help you. And in some other states, you can do it. You just have, sometimes you have to file an assistance form, but that's about it. Some states encourage you to collect those ballots and turn them in.
Okay. So now, isn't it true, too, that a percentage of those outstanding ballots are probably Republicans, too?
Oh, absolutely. You know, oh my goodness. Mark, I don't know if you saw the episode last night. I was cracking up. Trump has been saying don't count ballots that are received late. That's what he means, people. He means ballots that are received after November the 3rd. He's also saying don't allow for ballots to be counted late. You know, don't include the count of ballots that are received, that are counted late. But guess what? In Pennsylvania, there are 7 counties that don't count until November the 4th by their own statutes. They don't count and they don't even start counting until November 4th. And all of 7 are Republican.
Ah,
All seven are Republican counties. Every single one of them.
what?
He's fighting he's cutting off his nose to spite his face. What an idiot. Oh, I'm sorry. But it's
No, you.
insane.
Yeah,
I'm
he ain't right.
serious.
He's
All
not too bright.
7, Mark, are Republican counties.
Wow. Yeah, that's not too bright. That's
No,
not
he's
too
gonna
bright.
change on that. That you can just bet your bottom dollar he's gonna change that.
But Barbara, he can't change on one state and not change. You can't go to the Supreme Court, can you? And
Right.
certain
Got a
states gotta
uniform.
stop, but other states don't. You can't do that.
Right.
Can you?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's what you call it. He's painting himself into a corner
Mhm.
where that he can't get out of, because frankly, what he's trying to do is wrong. I mean, you got to let the states administer their elections. You
Mhm.
got to, do your best. And unless they're discriminating, you should allow the states to do what they say is the best for their state. So if they want to receive ballots later, let them, as long as they're postmarked. But that's a problem because they're going to fight that. That's what they're going to fight. And seeing all our poor voters out here, they're thinking this is like taxes. They're thinking, oh, as long as I get it to the mailbox before midnight, I should be okay. But that's not true, folks. That this is voting. Voting is totally different. They don't care in those 28 states when it's postmarked. They couldn't care the least. If you don't have it in on time, it does not count. And because you don't know which one of those states you're in, don't take the risk. Get that ballot in today. Call everybody. Make sure they hear this message. Even if your pastor doesn't raise it in church tomorrow, you stand up and testify about it and tell people to get those ballots in.
So, yeah, this is going to be something. So let's move to another subject. What they want to hear from you with some of the other obstacles we can anticipate. I got a call yesterday from Florida. White boys showing up at polling places with baseball bats. What else can we anticipate in terms of what's going to happen?
Well, we know that the Republican National Committee in December of 2019 announced that they were going to spend $20 million, which they have been spending, to stop the expansion of voting laws in the states. So they've been fighting everything. They don't want drop boxes. They don't want more than one drop box. So heck, they don't want any. But then if they have to be forced to take a drop box, they only want one. They've been fighting for all these exact signature matches. They've been fighting in Pennsylvania, and they won actually on this issue. And that was Pennsylvania has the double envelope. Now, I know people say, what double envelope? In some states, folks, they give you 2 envelopes. And you got to put your ballot in the first envelope, your completed ballot, and then you have to seal it, sign it, and then you have to put it inside the return envelope. And so you have a double envelope. So people look at that and say, that looks stupid. So what people do is they just fill out the ballot and they turn it in the return envelope. They don't waste that second envelope. Well, that's called the secrecy envelope. And Republicans fought and they won in Pennsylvania that if you don't use both envelopes, that your vote can't be counted. So that's happening to thousands of voters as we talk. So that's one thing. But we also know that they said that in addition to spending $20 million on those kinds of fights against voters' rights, that they were going to also hire 50,000 challengers to go to polling places. And let's be so clear, Mark, they're not talking about black and brown polling places. I mean, that's all they're talking about, I should say. They're not talking about white polling places. They're talking about black and brown polling places where they're going to send people to challenge our voters, to intimidate our voters, to try to scare our voters, to try to make it so messy that people say, I'm just leaving. I don't want to put up with this mess. So what we got to say to people are the following. You have a right under federal law to vote without being intimidated. Voter intimidation is a crime. Do you hear me? A crime. It's not legal. Nobody can stand up and tell you you can't vote. They can't, no private person can come up to you and say, I want to see your ID. They're not entitled to it. Nobody can say, I'm going to challenge you, and you never even met that person before. They don't know who you are. I mean, you have rights. And if people are trying to scare you, a guy in Alabama, check this out, everybody. He went to the polling site 2 days ago and took a dog, unleashed a snarling, angry dog, and walked up and down the black line, a white guy, the black line up and down with his dog running up to getting in people's faces and snarling and making noise and threatening folks. You know, that's how desperate they are. They want to do anything to intimidate voters. And the police said they couldn't do anything about that. That was stupid on the police part. And we don't want a lot of police at polls. So that's why, you know, I was mentioning earlier, Mark, that we have created the Clergy to the Polls program.
Right.
We said ministers. We know that many of you are not having active church service. We understand that you're not meeting because you shouldn't be, because it's not safe to have, you know, people in these crowded spaces, as we keep seeing from all these COVID Trump rallies. But what we do know is that you are online, you're ministering to your people, you're calling, you're taking care of your parishioners, but also you could put on your garb, put on all your vestments, your robes, and go to the polls and be there for voters, because voters need to be calm. Voters, when they've been standing on the line, Mark, have you seen them, what they look like after 2 and 3 hours?
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're so depressed sometimes. They're so weary, and they need a word. They need somebody who can pray with them, somebody who can laugh with them, somebody who can sing with them. You have a role, ministers. You have a role, clergy. You have a role, rabbis. You have a role, imams. Nobody is exempt from this. So we want you to go to clergytothepolls.com and sign up so that you can adopt a polling place. Be there. Go there if there's trouble and try to de-escalate. But guess what we found out, Mark, is that sometimes just having ministers there, the nutcases don't want to be around ministers. So they leave. They go and look for some other place to bother.
Right.
So we need ministers there so that we can calm down situations, tamp down situations, avoid conflict, because we should be able to vote in peace. I was so happy, Mark, when I went to my polling place. They were dancing, playing music, clapping for each other. They were happy. Everybody was doing it. That's the way voting should be. It should not be depressing. It should not be threatening. But it is a crime to intimidate voters.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true what you're saying, too, about the police. We don't want police officers at the polls that's going to intimidate people. We know they're going to. We know that there are going to be very, very long lines on Tuesday. We know that some of you will be taking your absentee ballots. Now, when I went this week, we had our absentee ballot. My son and I. My son voted for the first time in his life. Amen. And so there was a secondary line for those who were bringing their ballots back. And I'm saying that to encourage people. If you've already got your ballot, you may not have to stand in as long as a line. That's not a promise. It's right.
Oh, Mark, you're making a big point here.
Okay.
Is that in almost every state that I've been in several polling places in different states. They always have a separate line. Most of them do.
Yeah.
Where at the polling site, and it means that you get expedited. You do not stand in line. You just come. They got a separate line. In some places, they have separate entrances for people turning in their ballots. So you can just take it in. They mark whatever they mark on the polling booth. Some of them don't even do that. They just collect your ballots and they take them. So so that's the good news. You do not have to stand online if you have those ballots. So that's an advantage, folks. But I know, Mark, that some people are like, I don't trust none of that. You got to be kidding me. You think I'm gonna put some ballot, give some ballot to somebody? No, I want to vote. I want to vote out of my paper ballot that's given to me, that I know I can scan through the machine that minute and see my vote tabulated, or I want to go in the machine where I can see it tabulated. So we know you feel that way. So here's what you do. If you got a ballot, you received it already, take that ballot with you. You will have to, when you get up to the line, you're going to have to tell them that you want them to cancel that ballot, to spoil it, to invalidate it so that you can vote in person. And usually they'll do that real fast also. So I just want people, and they should, when you say that, they should give you a regular ballot because you turned in the other mail-in ballot and they know that you turned it in. So you should be able to get a regular ballot, and people have been getting regular ballots. Now, some states are confused. Some poll workers are confused, and they're going to want to try to give you a provisional ballot, insist on a regular ballot if you're in that situation. Now, if you show up, if you say, I can't find it, now, I know a whole lot of people told me when they decide they're going to vote in person, they put it in the trash. Please don't do that, people. Keep that ballot, bring it in. But if you're one of those people who had the unfortunate decision to discard, or you can't find your vote by mail ballot, you still can go and vote in person by saying, I can't find it. I want you to spoil it. They might force you to do a provisional ballot, but that's better than not voting. So please, people, please, please. There are answers. I've been tracking it around the country. There's a great article out today showing all the people who have been in these situations and how they all have been able to vote. That's the good news. And so go to the polls and vote. Don't take your time. Please don't even look at a mailbox right now. Don't look at nobody's mailbox. Don't be talking about, well, I'm going to wait until Monday until my ballot gets here. It ain't coming if you don't have it by now. And don't be talking about, I'm going to wait till Tuesday until my ballot gets here. Are you kidding me? Yeah. You have to go to the polls and vote. Don't be wasting your time. Don't be taking the risk with your sacred right to vote, as John Lewis called it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Wow, this is heavy. Barbara Arnwine with us now. Before we go, we want people to have some information. And folks,
yes,
your preachers, your pastors, clergytothepolls.com, right?
Right, clergytothepolls.com.
And let me tell y'all something. There. Preachers listen to their congregants.
Yes.
Well, some of y'all watching this, call pastor and say, hey, you need to go to clergytothepolls.com. They're going to do it because you said so, number one. Number two, if you have any questions leading up to Tuesday about your mail-in ballot, if you go to vote Tuesday and there are problems, the number to call is 866-OUR-VOTE, correct?
That's correct. 866-8, that is 66, you heard me, 687-8683. That's 866-687-8683. Now, what we want people to know is that people like me are answering that phone. I've been able to help voters. I've had voters call me, Mark, and say they're telling me I can't vote, that I got to vote provisionally or not at all because they say they can't find me on the voter registration rolls. And I said, sir, tell me your name. And they've done their name. And I said, okay, take your phone over to the poll worker. And I said, hi, Ms. Sue, whatever. Can you look on page 44? on your supplemental list. That's correct. And look at the 10th name. That's him. And they'll go, oh, I didn't think to look there. And that voter's been able to vote. I've been able to get calls where people have said, I've been told I can't vote in my state because they say I'm an ex-felon. And I know I registered. Did I do something wrong? Is it true I can't vote? And I said, of course you can vote. You know, when they tell me what state they're in. And I look up their laws. And I know that in their states, they don't have a requirement. There are 21 such states in the country that have 29 states in the country that have no requirements and conditions for people who want to vote if they were formerly incarcerated. It's kind of confusing that people think that all these folks do. So what because there are states that do.
Right.
So what I say to people is that's when you want to call that number. And so I was able to get those people to vote. And you should have heard the whole family cheering.
Wow.
These are the things we do on the hotline. Sometimes people are just really confused because these states are horrible at telling you where to go to vote. And they just want to know, where should I vote? And remember, people, in Ohio and in a lot of other states, they have what are called correct precinct laws. And right now, in your early voting, they don't care about precincts so much when you're early voting. But on Tuesday, everything changes. You're going to have to be at your correct precinct. That's a disadvantage of not voting early, because now they're going to force you in most states into your correct precinct. And if you're not at the correct precinct, there's one thing they don't tell you, and that is that in many of these states, they will not count your ballot. They will give you a provisional ballot. They will give you an I voted sticker, but they will never count that ballot if you're in the wrong precinct. So be careful about where you vote. If you wait until November 3rd, please don't wait. Just take advantage of the early voting if you can. It's ending in several states today, Saturday. But also, however, for a couple of dozen of states, they will be voting tomorrow, and they'll be voting on Monday early. But make sure, no matter what you do, that you call that hotline, because they'll tell you where your polling site is. Your correct polling site is.
Right, folks. So we just want to remind you what you need to do. And we want to encourage you to be sure to call that number, 866-OUR-VOTE, in case you have any problems whatsoever. Any questions you may have, you can call today. People need to then call today, right? It's 24.
That's correct. It's 24. It's up right now. It'll be up tomorrow. It'll be up Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because we want to hear if you had a bad experience and there were problems at your polling sites. The other thing we want to tell them, Mark, is that if you're voting in person on November 3rd or anywhere, at the end of the polling hours, if you're in line, you have the right to vote. Don't let them try to close that polling site. They will do it. I've had to fight with too many poll workers and election judges because they want to get out of there. They're tired. But they don't understand that you legally, by law, have the right to vote if you were in line at the time that the polling site technically closed. So you have that right, even if it means, as it did in Georgia during the primary, that some people didn't vote until 2 a.m. You still have that right until everybody who was in line has voted. That polling site cannot close.
We know they're probably going to go to court on that, because even when they close, the courtesy has been in many places, right, that if the line is people are still in line even past 8 o'clock, they'll let those in line vote. We know they're going to go to court over that. They're going to go to court over that.
Well, they can't win, because there's something called the National Voter Registration Act that gives people that right. They can't win that one.
Okay.
But because remember, in Louisville during the primary, they tried to close early, and they had hundreds of people in line. And not only that, there was no parking. So a lot of people couldn't park their cars and get in line. And the judge ordered that poll to definitely be kept open. And that's that video that many people have seen of the hundreds of people just running into the polling site. That's what happened there. So that's why lawyers like me are going to be on the lookout. I'm part of the National Bar Association and the Transformative Justice Coalition. We have a joint election protection project with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. And we are deploying thousands of lawyers around the country. And we're not just there to give advice, we're there to litigate if we have to.
Right.
And so remember, people, folks like me are on the other side of that line.
Yeah, folks, and we're thankful for everything that Barbara Unwind's doing. clergytothe-polls.com, 866-OUR-VOTE. You answer the phone yourself sometimes, don't you?
I do. I do.
Okay.
And I've been helping people to vote. We talked about that problem that came up in Chicago, where this young man went to vote in one of the, one of the districts, polling sites, and he had on a Biden mask. Now, of course, you can't wear paraphernalia in some states. It's illegal. You cannot wear it into the polling place. He didn't know that because they signed him in. They gave him a ballot, and then somebody complained, and he got upset, and they put him out of the polling place, and he called Rainbow Push and said, I couldn't vote, and I'm never going to be able to go back because they're going to lock me up because I'm a former felon and I don't want to end up in jail, and it's just unfair and it's wrong, and I hate that I won't be able to vote this year. And when I heard that problem, I said, well, listen, you tell him not to give up, and have one of the clergy from Rainbow Push go with him to the polling site, or have a lawyer go with him and have them go with him and give him that confidence that he's going to be okay. And they did. They had Bishop Grant went with him, and he was able to vote just like I predicted. That's why we sit on the other side of those hotlines. Yeah.
866-OUR-VOTE. Before we go, comment from someone on Facebook. This is really sweet. Listen to this, Barbara. Person writes, I can't think of a better sign than to see a smile on Barbara's face. One of our nation's leading experts feels good about what's up. I am loving it. Preach it, Barbara. We need all of the ballots in and counted, not just in. So that's a sweet message. Barbara, did we lose? We can't see you anymore.
I don't know why. I can't figure out what just happened. Somebody tried to call me, and I declined the call.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's what happens on when we are on these phones. But look, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And all the hard work, folks. This has been a lesson and a primer. She has preached the word, taught class, and held court. Amen. And
amen for you, Mark.
I can tell some folk were listening like, wait a minute, I never heard this before. And see, let me tell y'all something else too. Don't be selfish with the knowledge Barbara's giving you. When we finish, get on the phone. Call your folks all over the country. Fam, say, hey, ain't nothing else to talk about right now. Ain't nothing else going on. Don't call and ask for no recipe to score the game. For the next 3 days, let me tell you something. After Tuesday, we can go back to talking whatever trash we want to talk to each other. But the only conversation family and friends need to be having, did you vote? Did you get your ballot in?
Amen.
Indeed. That's the only conversation. Don't be asking about how, Booby Q and everybody else doing, what you doing today. Don't matter. Okay. If you celebrating Halloween, you should dress up like a ballot or a ballot box. Everything should be focused. It's just 3 days. We can't do that for 3 days. Listen, Barbara, them women boycotted the buses in Montgomery and walked to work for a year.
Yes.
So already. I know.
Yes.
Some of us can focus on one subject for 3 days and not get distracted in a bunch of other fools. Don't be talking about Ice Cube no more. That ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Let it go. Don't even waste your time with that foolishness. Focus. We didn't ask them. We're not asking you to go hurt yourself. We're not even asking you to march. The only thing we want you to do is march to the polls.
Right.
With your feet.
And Mark, think about this. You know, you don't have to be a lawyer like me to help voters.
Right.
You can just call them and make sure that they know that it's time to vote, that they need to vote now. Don't hold on to
Right.
that ballot any longer. Get it in right this minute. Go
That's
vote in person. You can also remember the most powerful woman in the United States during the Alabama special senatorial race was a Black woman who said she had never spent one day in a college. She said, I don't have a lot of money. She said, I don't have a job, but she said, I had a car and I had gas money. She took 100 people to the polls.
Yeah, yeah.
That's power.
And it's the everyday people like that. Y'all see this picture behind Barbara and me, John Lewis on that bridge. Now, them are everyday people, most of whose names will never be known. And just like the woman Barbara described, that's what this is about for you. It's not about folks who have their names in lights.
Amen.
It's about people who are known by fewer people than even know me and Barbara. That's why Barbara is fighting for you. All right. So please, ma'am, please, sir, get on the phone. And if you have a candidate you support, okay, get on the website. They'll give you a sheet of phone numbers to call. That's one thing you can do. If you can't afford to send $5. If you got $5, though, this is me talking. This ain't Barbara talking because she's 501c3. You know, send that $5 to Mike Espy or somebody, you know, so we can get a senator from a state that hadn't had a Black senator since Reconstruction. There's still something for you to do in the next 3 days.
Yes.
Rather than sit around on our rusty dusties and gossip and talk about sports. Okay.
Well, say one word to your friends. We are unstoppable. Have that in your head. Unstoppable. Ooh. That's who we are in this moment. Nothing's going to stop us. And nothing going to turn us around. We're going right back to where our ancestors brought us. And we're saying we are unstoppable in this moment.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Ain't going to let nobody
turn me around.
Amen. Amen. Barbara Arnwine, we love you. Y'all feel this energy? Barbara needs to we need an app with Barbara's voice on. You know how they had these apps to calm you down, meditate. We need another app to motivate us. When you need some motivation, it needs to be in Barbara's voice. That's an idea. We might need, after this is over, we might need to figure that out, Barbara. Get us a Barbara Arnwine app.
Well, thank you, Mark, for just being remarkable. I am so grateful to you for your leadership because you're everywhere. I've seen you on that Pettis Bridge. You know that.
Yes, ma'am.
Over and over. And I've seen you in the midst of so many conflicts and bringing order and knowledge and light. We need you. Thank you, my brother.
And we need you too, Barbara. You and I have been doing this together for a long time. You are a stalwart. We love you. And we are thankful, so thankful for all you do, your commitment, in the words of Frederick Douglass, your eternal vigilance. And it has been such a blessing to us all. Folks, 866 our vote. All right, we're going to stop talking. Get on the phone with your loved ones. Call them. Get them moving. We're thankful to Barbara Arnwine. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Hold on a minute for me while I end this broadcast.